Hi, I am so glad that you guys came to my presentation today. I am really sorry that I'm not actually in the room right now. As you can see, I'm stuck in a hotel room, nor'easter or something, I don't know. Anyway, first I just want to say thank you to Robert and Brandy and Anna and my entire cohort for all of your support in this undertaking. My name is Broderick Turner. I am a math teacher at Grady High School, and I'm here today to present my presentation on paper, computers, and the brain. Now, no students were harmed in the making of this presentation, at least none that I know of. So, this was then. Teachers gave tests. I mean, that's what they did, right? They would teach, and then boom, we give a Scantron or we give some paper-based version of the test, but this is how we did it. And what we ended up with was paper. Lots and lots and lots and lots of paper. But things have changed, so this is now. Now we have options like USA Test Prep, all right, which we'll get into later. Or we can even talk about Khan Academy, all right? Khan Academy is awesome. This guy has put up something like 2,000 videos on everything from the Pythagorean theorem to the Black-Scholes formula. And where we're headed to with all this technology, right, the future is places like School of One. I want to show y'all a quick video, it's like a minute and a half, about what they're doing over the School of One.
School of One is based on one simple idea, that we are organizing an entire school around the needs of every one student.
I like the online tutors because you get to work with different teachers from all around the world. The other day I was working with a teacher from North Carolina.
How many threes did we just have?
5.
Right.
I like how we get to use computers to learn math because I never did that before.
There are 8 different ways that students can learn, and 5 of them are live, and 3 of them are on computers.
I like to work with other people, but not too many people. You're working with a small group of kids, one teacher and about 8 kids. I like the communication with the tutor online. I get scared sometimes if I have to look at a teacher and ask them the question, but sometimes you just type the question and they answer it. At the end of the day, what happens?
All right, so what School of One is doing is they are using technology and an awesome algorithm to essentially make all education differentiated, right? You could have 30 different levels in a classroom, 30 different kids, and the technology is set up such that each kid is on a different topic. They've had some success, but they've had trouble expanding, and I think part of it is because they've yet to answer this question. And that question is, what effect do computers actually have on student learning? All right, I wanted to answer this question. I was very curious about this because, you know, I want to bring this stuff into my classroom. I want to make this stuff real. All right, so I used a pretty simple methodology. Over a 6-month period, I collected about 2,600 data records between our online USA Test Prep system, and I gave out 4 cumulative benchmark exams over a 2-month period. All right. Now, on the system, the average score on a benchmark is about 50% correct, which means that some students score 100, some students score 20, some students score 50, but it averages out to about each student on average making about 50%. All right. So what I did was I wanted to look at these tests, all right, and I wanted to see, was there a difference between giving out a paper-based version of this test, okay, or a paper version of this benchmark, and then an online computer-based version of the benchmark. Here's what we found. All right, for our first test, the percent correct, all right, the average percent correct was 55%, which is good. I mean, it's 5 points above the average. All right, but the computer-based version was a 48. All right, this might not seem like much, 55 to 48. It's still bad, but it's kind of a big drop off, right? It's a 7-point swing, right? That's almost a 20% difference, right? This is a problem because there really should be no difference between a kid doing a test on paper and doing a test online, or so I thought. All right, and I asked myself, why? Why is this? All right, what's going on here? All right, and it perplexed me because, again, there really should be no difference. But then I noticed something, right? I was looking at my students, right? Looking at them, looking at what they were doing online, and here's what I noticed. This is what their screen should look like, right? We see 1 or 2 questions up at a time. They're focused on just this, right, which is the test. But this is what their screen actually looked like. We got YouTube playing, Facebook, they're poking each other, they're tweeting, they're doing everything but focus on the test. All right? Now, let's take a second here to talk about a problem. And this problem is multitasking. Now, I know some of you out there think that you're awesome multitaskers. You probably feel, or you think you're like this guy. But you're not. All right, let's be honest. You're probably more like this. All right? Here's why. Our brains, and I'm so glad we finally get to talk about the brain since I spent 6 months studying it. Our brains are designed to process one thing at a time. All right? We can do one cognitive process at a time. Now, there's this concept in economics called switching costs, which essentially says if I have a factory and I want to change my supplier from Kansas to China, right? It's not just the difference in the cost of goods, right? But it's also the cost of actually having to switch from Kansas to China. Do I have to learn a new language? Do I have to set up new systems? Do I have to change the time that I call my supplier since they're 12 hours ahead? Now, we can take the same concept and apply it to cognitive psychology and to the brain because our brains also have to pay a switching cost. So as a student, if I am focused on doing the test and then Sally tweets me, right, I had to take my attention away from the test to the tweet. Then I had to go back from the tweet to the test. All right, and what we find is kids lose time. All right, kids don't switch well. And not just kids, you people there in the audience, you don't switch well either. No one does, all right? Because our brains process one piece of information at a time. So I made a change, and that change was this. I said to the kids, only one window open. Obviously, that window had to be the test they're working on. And that was it, all right? And I expected to see a huge change in the huge change between paper and computer-based, all right? Because really, kids were doing too much, like this guy, just doing way too much at once, all right? So on test 2, here's what we found. Paper-based, we averaged a 56, all right? Again, not bad. The kids who are multitasking is a 46, and the kids who are unitasking moved up to about a 49, right? Which says there is some benefit to not switch tasking, but still the paper-based and computer-based testing should be the same, all right? And I had to ask myself, what was I missing, all right? What was going on here? So again, this required that I stalked the kids, right? I had to figure out what they were doing. I had to ask them questions, get in their head. What's going on here? What am I missing? What am I not noticing? Like, what am I not seeing? And that's when I noticed something, right? I looked around and I got back tests from my students and they were covered with writing, right? Like, you know, the paper-based test, they took notes, they tried to answer the question. If they got it wrong, you know, they were showing something, right? They were putting their work down on paper, right? The kids who did the test on the computer, weren't using paper. They were just taking the test. They were doing it all in their heads. They're saying, I can do this in my head, which I can't do the stuff in my head. I know they weren't doing it in their heads, right? And I said, that's interesting. These kids just aren't using paper, right? What's going on here? So the problem was this, that there was a broken analogy, all right? That there was an issue with how the kids saw the computer. We learned this year about the concept in learning in the brain called transfer, where you take one concept to learn another concept. The problem the kids had was they had a broken analogy, which was this, that the computer was like television. They were kicked back, they were watching the test, right? The test wasn't doing, they weren't doing the test, right? They were being entertained by the test. And this is a problem because what I needed them to see was that the computer was the test. It's the same thing, all right? So again, we made another change, which was to add paper, all right? This is one of my students here, Sais, all right? Pre-paper. You see, he's just doing the test, kind of kicked back, watching the screen. And we made a simple change, which was this, Sais, use some paper, all right? And I wish I could zoom in, all right? But here he's actually doing work. One small change, all right? Use paper. That's it. So again, I expect a huge change. Here's what we saw. All right, no paper. Our average percent correct was 47. All right, not good. With paper, 49. All right, 2-point jump. All right, but again, there was a problem here because it should be a much bigger jump, right? We should be the same as the paper-based test. So there must have been another problem, right? And then I thought, you know, we read some more, was doing some more stuff in class, and we learned about state-dependent learning, or I think I did some outside research and found out about state-dependent learning, which is a concept of, let's say that you always drink coffee and smell lavender while you're studying, then when you take a test, you should drink coffee and smell lavender. Or they even had a story of a guy who learned all the presidents while he was drinking, but could not remember them when he was not drinking. So the only way for him to remember presidents was to drink. All right, I'm sure that was an excuse for him to like beer or whatever. But you know, there is a problem here, which is we had the wrong state. Okay, because what the kids are used to seeing, right? What the kids are used to doing is paper-based stuff. All right, so the problem's the wrong state. And here's what I mean. This is an assignment I've given the kids, right? They had to graph piecewise function, all right? Here's another assignment that was given to the kids. Here's another one. If you notice, there's a lot of paper, all right? We use a lot of paper, all right? So I made a change. One of the first things we learned this year was about guiding the elephant, which is it's really tough to get people to make massive changes, all right? So what you have to do is to basically build systems in place that make it easy for them to change, all right? Going from paper-based learning to computer-based learning is a big change, all right? So we needed to guide this elephant and connect the dots, all right, to make it so that we could bring these things together. And here's what I did. When I gave them a test, I gave them numbered paper, all right? If it was a 30-question online test, I gave them numbered paper 1 through 30. All right. Also, let me make sure we understand this with the methodology we had. They also made sure that no other screen was open. Right. They had paper and it was numbered. Right. Those are the big changes. That was it. All right. So our last test. Here's what we see. Paper-based. We had 56% correct. All right, no paper, 47%. With paper, 49%. All right, and with numbered paper, all right, with numbered paper, we were at 57% correct. All right, which means that they're basically the same. All right, that what we see here is that paper-based testing and computer-based testing, we get the same result. All right, I put in this box and whisker plot for my math nerds out there.